Hi there, it's Tricia Moore's Ed Club Scrap with the Fun and Games collection. This is our card workshop. We're going to make 12 awesome cards together today. For now, what I'd like you to do is set aside all the goodies that came in your kit, including this plentiful supply of ribbon. We've got some of these really fun little tags. Those are going to be used in card set B, so you might as well just throw those in there into the B pocket of your accordion pocket file. I happen to have mine all set up and ready to go. I hope you have yours too. It comes in super handy for staying organized, because the key to our efficiency here is trimming all the papers at once and then scoring them all at once and organizing them into 3 different categories. I've got our envelopes as well ready to go, and the washi tape goodie came in this kit along with some really beautiful sequins. So I'll set all of this aside so it's handy. And then I have my instruction document printed here. You can access this document on our resources page. Just look for the Fun and Games kit. And as a quick note, if you're working with remix collections, always be sure to make sure you're working with the right version of the collection when you download your instructions. That's just a little hot tip for you today. Okay, so typically what we're going to do here is put all of these papers in the order that we're going to be trimming them. So let's begin by finding one red plain, and the papers are really easy to identify this time, and then a white. So that white in this kit is nice and bright and super smooth. It's a beautiful paper for stamping as well, and it is available by the sheet. There's a patterned paper in this. It's not a print, it's a pattern. So make sure you compare the bright white to this pattern. It has a little bit of a softer, more eggshell tone to it. And then a taupe metallic. This one has a nice metallic shade and like a champagne taupey color. It does have a texture on one side. Let's repeat those findings. So we're going to go back to finding red, and then another white, another taupe pattern, and another taupe metallic. Then we're going to find 2 sheets of black. You'll notice again that this has a texture on one side, is more smooth on the other. It doesn't matter when you're trimming, but it'll matter if it matters to you when you're adhering things. And then we have our 2 prints that we'll trim, followed by the Cutapart that has all of the checkers and sorry pieces on the edge, and then this other one with this cool game board collage on the left. So those are the papers in their proper order. If you got lost in that, or if I went too fast, you can always slow me down or rewind as needed. I don't know, is rewind an old term now? Do we rewind? I don't know, we used to do that with cassette tapes, but I don't know if you do it on videos anymore. Okay, so what we need to do first, based on step 1 here, is to first find our grain direction of this red paper. So I'm holding it by the center, and I can see that the paper is real flexible in this direction, and that's how I want it going into my trimmer base. I'll repeat that again on this white as well. That's pretty stiff. This is pretty droopy. So I'm going to stack these together, keep the red on top so we have some color. And our first cut here is going to be at 11. And then 8.5. And then rotate that 8.5-inch piece. We'll cut at 10.25. And 7. And then you can set aside this piece to be scored, pick up the next larger strip here, and we're going to trim this horizontally. Just take a little bit off and cut at 8.25. This is going to go in pocket C, and then we have this other narrow strip that we'll also trim at 8.25, and it will go in pocket C as well. This next piece we'll trim horizontally here at 10.75 and 7.25. And then this piece goes in pocket C, and this rectangle here, B. And everything else on the tabletop here is not officially assigned. So anything not officially assigned to a card can be placed in pocket D, and what I typically do is pull everything out of that pocket while I'm decorating my cards and look for opportunities to incorporate those pieces. There's a few 1/4-inch scraps I just disposed of. Now we're going to repeat all of that with the taupe pattern. and the metallic tip. Oh, this is such gorgeous paper. It's a 100-pound cover weight. Absolutely stunning. Be really nice for a special occasion like wedding. Can you imagine making wedding invites out of that? Okay, let's trim again here at 11, 8.5. If you're new to this trimmer, I have a whole tutorial on how to use it. And then we'll rotate and we'll cut at 10.25 and 7. Once again, we've created some card bases that need to be scored. So those get set aside. Take that little end off of this piece by trimming at 8.25. That goes in pocket C again. And then this other strip, also at 8.25. Going into pocket C. The long strip, we're going to cut at 10.75 and 7.25. This piece too goes in pocket C, and then B on the rectangle, D and this nice long strip. If you want, you can keep this little guy, put that in D as well, and then these others go in the bin. Okay, now we're doing a repeat of the colors, but a different trimming diagram here. And if you're following along with me on the instructions, we're just on step 2, trimming 4 sheets the same way. This time though, the arrow is pointing left to right. So that means I want the grain or the easy dip direction of the paper to go from left to right. So once again, I'll take the white, double check that. Yes, definitely feel it more going this way, and I'm gonna keep the red on top. You don't have to, but I'm just choosing to. Our first cut here is at 9. Rotate and cut at 11.75 and 6.25. Set aside to be scored. This other larger one set aside to be scored as well. You do have a skinny strip. I mean, I think this is worth keeping. It could make a really nice little accent color on something. And then we're going to cut this remaining piece just at 8 inches. This is pocket C and pocket B. I really love the formulas this month. They're nice and, I don't know, just easy. I think this is going to be a set you'll want to replicate. Oh, we have to repeat now with the taupe, same exact thing. So check your grain. We're going left to right this time. Dippy dippy. Definitely wants to go this way. And nice easy cuts again here at 9. Rotate, we're going to take off a little bit, so 11.75 and 6.25. All right, set aside and set aside. Both of these are going to be card bases. And we have our little accent strips. You can keep those. I like to call those paper ribbons because they look kind of like ribbon, but made of paper. And the last strip we'll cut at 8. This is pocket C again. Lots going into C. And then B. Okay, now the black. 1 sheet. Now you have 2 have been sorted out, but make sure you just take 1 because they get trimmed in different ways. So make sure you're dipping now for this one. Again, we're going left to right on our grain, and we'll cut at 11.25 and 9. Now I'm going to show you a trick. I didn't explain this in the instructions, but I'm going to grab my score pal and a scoring tool. I like to use a stylus instead of the plastic piece that comes with it. And I'm going to place this paper into my score pal before I trim it. This is a huge time-saving tip if you're making massive quantities of cards. If you can score before you trim when you're making multiple panels, it'll save you a lot of time. So I'm just going to put this vertically into the score pal and score at 3. Then I'm going to flip the paper from the bottom up to the top. So bottom to top and score at 6. Again, this is not in your written instructions. I didn't really want to get into it in the fine print. So hopefully this will just be a reason to tune into the workshops because you're always going to get some fun tips. Now I'm going to place this horizontally into my trimmer and cut at 9, 6, and 3. So each one of these strips is a panel on set A. I would have had to score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times to get all of these scores appropriately placed. By doing it before I trimmed the paper, I only had to score twice. So it's a time saver. It takes more time to explain than the time it saves, but I think for your general knowledge, keep that in mind. And these go in pocket A. We don't have to score them later. Next, we'll make a bunch of squares. So we're going to start out at 11 1/4, 9, 6 3/4, 4 1/2, and 2 1/4. Okay, so we just made all of these little squares. There is a scrap. So the squares go in C, and the little piece, I'm just going to dispose of it. The long strip, I'm going to pop that in pocket D again and move on to the next sheet of black paper. Now in this case, none of the black paper that we're going to cut right now, none of these panels will be folded. So it doesn't matter which way it goes into the trimmer as far as the grain. Our first cut's at 9 3/4, 7 1/2, and 4 1/4. 4 1/4. Okay, now let's make some rectangles. We're gonna make 3 the same size. So we need one cut at 9 3/4, 6 1/2, 3 1/4. So we have 3 the same going in pocket B. And we have this guy as a reject going in D. And then this piece is kind of weird. We're just going to trim it at 4 1/4. And this goes in pocket B. And believe it or not, all of this paper is in D. I ended up using quite a bit of it. I'll give you some hints on it. Again, I didn't want to get into it with the instructions. It's really something that you can use as you please. Let's make a bunch more of those squares again. So we're going to first cut at 11 1/4, 9. So I know in my mind I'm doing 2 1/4 inch squares, so I just go 1, 2 1/4. So that's 6 3/4. 1, 2, 4 1/2, and 2 1/4. And again, these are all the squares going in pocket C. So much in that pocket, and then this one is a scrap. And finally, I'll cut this. I'm gonna make some more squares. 1, 2 1/4. That's 9 3/4 is our cut. 7 1/2. Again, this is for pocket D. And then these 2 are the last squares I need for pocket C. We've arrived at the prints. If you want, you can trim these at the same time. What I do find is the prints can be a little slidey. So if you're newer to the trimmer, just do 1 sheet at a time. What I'm also going to do to try to add variety to my cards is to rotate one of the prints just so that not all the panels look the same. Our first cut is at 8. Now, if you are doing both at the same time, make extra sure you're pushing down firmly on the clear bar. And then slide down to 5 1/4. Firm pressure on the clear bar. You should have that firm pressure on every cut, but even more so on these. Then cut at 11. 8 1/4. That's on this wide piece here. 5 1/2. 2 3/4. Okay, we just made a bunch of rectangles and a scrap. Okay, so all of these rectangles are the same size, going in pocket A, which has been pretty neglected so far. And then we do have some printed scrap here. I'm going to throw that in D. Now we have the next strips. We're going to do the same cuts that we did on those previous strips. Make some squares now. Well, they're not quite squares. 11. 8 1/4. 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Okay, all of these squares, again, pocket A. We're really gonna adorn those cards. And 2 more printed scraps for pocket D. Take the next strips. We'll cut at 11 1/2. And 5 3/4. Okay, all of this goes in pocket B, 2 scraps, and we're moving on to the cut-aparts. Now, as our usual thing, we have to remove the perimeter of the sheet, and you're going to be finding these little hash marks in the corners. I'm not sure if you can see that very well. I cut these myself from press sheets, so there isn't as much material there on the edge as you might have. So I'm just aligning that little hash mark with the edge of my trimming blade, and then cutting away a little tiny scrap from the edge. And what this does is gives us a much better foundation from which to cut our components out. Okay, so get rid of those scraps, and then we're going to reorient the print again so that the having fun is in the upper left corner. Trim at 10, then 8, 6, nice and easy, and 3 1/4. Rotate. We'll cut at 10 3/4, 9. Notice I'm not filing anything. We'll do that together as soon as we finish this row. 6 3/4, 4 1/2, and 3 1/4, 2 1/4 rather, 2 1/4. Okay, now what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4 sentiments that are the same size going in B. Then we have this guy. Now turn it so that the chest piece is on the left, and we're going to separate these little pieces. So our first cut is at 2 3/4, and the chest piece gives you something to hang on to. Then 2 1/4, then 1 3/4. It gets starting and tardy. So even when you get this little object here, just keep moving it, and then stabilize the clear bar at 1 1/4. Then the chest piece is basically a scrap. I'm going to pop that in D, and these 4 little guys end up getting nested onto the tags that we already filed in pocket B. So that's where I'm going to put those. This is pocket C, or D rather. Now we have some check here on the right. That's the smallest piece. We're going to trim off first. So we'll cut at 11, and 8 1/4, 5 1/2, and 2 3/4. That gives you 4 squares that end up in pocket A, all kinds of other stuff, and then a scrap. This we can just cut in half at 6, and these are sentiments for the inside of the slimline cards we're making this month, so those go in C. Now these 2 get trimmed exactly the same way. I don't know, I'm just gonna do it one sheet at a time. They're nice and easy because it's all even numbers. So 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and repeat for this one again. 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. If you wanted to even keep these all in the same order, I think it'll help you in the sorting process, and those go in C. Now go ahead and once again remove the perimeter of our final sheet. We're almost to the finish line of our trimming process. So I'll arrange this print so that the word gamers is in the upper right corner. I like that. Gamers don't age, they level up. We're going to trim at 9 3/4. And then be careful here, because if you cut here, you're going to go right through all that artwork. So we're going to slide down to 5 1/4. Trim some panels. So rotate so this narrow piece is on the right. We'll start at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Take all of these that are the same, pocket A, lots in there, and then this is a scrap. Finally, we're going to grab this piece. Make sure that this double here is on your left. And our first cut's at 9 1/4, 6 1/2, 3 3/4, Now do a rotation. So I arranged this so that it would be hopefully easier. Then 2 1/4. So this one, especially on your birthday, pocket B. The congratulations, pocket C. Then you have, sorry I missed it, happy birthday, so happy for you. B, B as in boy. Now, one more here. Make sure it's your day is on the right. We'll cut at 9. 6 3/4. 4 1/2. 2 1/4. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 squares going in pocket A. And last but not least, this one going in C. That was your last trim for all 12 cards. Now I've got my score pal ready to go here. So basically you've got a big pile that you'd set aside earlier that needed to be scored. And we'll deal with these in the order they landed just so that you can follow along easily. So here we have this first pile of a pair here. And I like with this score pal, you have a measurement reading on both sides. So 5 1/2 by 9. I'm just going to take one piece. This is the champagne or the taupe. And score at 3. Then we're going to do what we did before with the black. We're going to flip it bottom to top and score at 6. Now, if you skipped following along with the trimming instructions, I already did the scoring on the black paper that we trimmed in the same way. I did 3, then flip, and then 6. So if you have all of those 3 by 9 pieces, you need to score them like this. Then again at 3 and 6. Now, if you look in your pile, there should be another spot where there are 2 more sized the same. Let's go ahead and do those together. So 3, it's 9 inches across here, and then flipping up to 6. Make sure it's only 5 1/2 inches tall. And one last one, 3, flip, 6. I will stack these up and put them in pocket A. That's just loaded with goods right now. Next, we have, again, in this metallic color here, we're going to score. This one's also 9, but this time it's 6 1/2 inches tall. I love this formula because I got to have 8 card bases from this formula, 4 each in 2 different sizes. It's kind of cool. We'll score in half now at 4 1/2. I did this with the textured or ridged side facing up while I'm scoring. And then 4 1/2 again. Here we have the red with a linen-like texture. That'll put the linen on top, and the white won't matter. Oh, it's so nice and smooth. I love it. Okay, all of this goes in pocket B. Okay, now we have our slim line. So when you place this one in the score palette, it should read 7 up here and 8 1/2 down here. And we'll score at 3 1/2. On the ridge side of that one doesn't matter. You've got our linen texture facing up at 3 1/2, and the white vertically at 3 1/2. Okay, so all of this, guess where it goes? Pocket C. And now I am ready to assemble. So I'll set my score palette aside. I always like to begin by taking everything out of the pocket we're working on. In this case, it's pocket A, or the first pocket. And then if you would like, you can turn in your instructions, whether you've printed them or you're using a tablet, turn to page 3 so you can see all the colorways for the 4 different cards. Now, the first thing you're going to notice right away is that we have these larger card bases with 2 score lines. And if you follow the rule of scoring, of folding a score, you look for the ridge or the bump of the score, and that gets buried inside the fold. So your mnemonic is to bury the bump. Now, if I flip this over, there's another bump here, so that gets buried. And essentially what I just created is something that we call a Z fold or an accordion type fold. You can repeat that for the other larger card bases, and don't worry about texture at this point. All we need to do is just flip things to the appropriate direction when we assemble. So repeat that till all of those card bases are folded. Notice I'm burnishing also with a bone folder, and then you'll find a set of these black strips. Now what I noticed about, even though I scored in the direction of the grain, the black is just, it's 100-pound cover weight, so it's a little heavier. And if you find that the score lines weren't quite powerful enough, go back and add another set if you feel the need. I knew to give it a little more pressure because of the way the paper behaves, but this is some pretty heavy paper. Just one of the reasons I love it. I'm burnishing the paper on the non-textured side to protect it from scarring. Okay, so now I have all these wonderful little Z folds and it's time to kind of sort things out. So let's begin with our white card base first, followed by the red, and then the champagne and the pattern. Each one of these card bases will also get a set of black here. With all of the scoring, it's kind of hard to get everything distributed. There should be 4 pieces just like this. You can kind of add one to each card. Try to make organized piles here. And then you should have these little squares. I think each card gets 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That was why it was nice to rotate the paper when I trimmed the prints, because otherwise I had to be aware of like making sure I had variety. And then each card gets 2 of the larger rectangular panels, 2, 2, and 2. Now we have our sentiments. So for the first card, we're going to go life is a game of chess. And that's the smaller square. That's the outside of the card. And then the inside is, I don't know how to play chess. I love that. Then we've got gamers don't age. They level up. And then we have 2 the same. So celebrate goes on each, and it's your birthday goes on each. Now I think I'm going to make the red card with you because I want to discuss the texture issue that we have. So I'm just going to gather up all the other card pieces. And since there's so many, I'm going to take the A2 envelope and just open that up and insert all of these pieces into the envelope. I typically pass these trimmed card sets off to Karen because I've already made a full set. She takes it from here and completes the cards for herself. It's kind of a good deal that we have going around here at Club Scrap. So basically, when you start working with your card base, make sure you're grabbing the card so that the mountain fold is first and the texture is facing up. So you may have to flip it or rotate it or turn it. You shouldn't have to refold anything. Just keep turning things so that the texture ends up in the front and that the first fold is a mountain fold. When we assemble this, the same is going to be true for the black strip. So the first fold is a mountain fold and the texture is facing up. So I have these 2 matching Z's. Okay, now one of the things that I did right off the bat is I added some washi tape, the sparkly washi tape, to one of the larger panels. A really handy thing is if you have our Club Scrap 13 by 13 cutting mat, it has a grid on it. So you place this on the grid and then you've got your tape, right? So you can run your tape along one of the lines on the grid and then you know it's level. I hope that made sense. And then you can just wrap the ends around to the back. How's that for time-saving handy, right? So now I can take this panel and attach it to the left scored area. So you got left, right, center here. And I'm doing it with the washi tape on the right. You could just do it any way you want, but this is just how I did it, okay? Then I took another one of the tall panels from the printed paper. Now I see it's the same. I'm going to swap that with something else. That's handy, isn't it? Oops. And then I will adhere that to the center panel. You ever play left, right, center? It's a really fun game. Speaking of games, right? Then we have this cut apart too, which I think is really fun. This whole thing just gets wallpapered beautifully with some gorgeous artwork. I love it. So center that up. Okay, so this panel's kind of ready to roll. Now, And the same way here. And again, just a reminder, make sure your first fold is a mountain and it's textured. So we have these panels that are square or square-ish, or they're squares from the print. The print goes on the front and a print goes in the middle. It worked out really nicely from a mathematical standpoint. Love it. And then the other larger panel is the inside of the card, so we can go ahead and attach that. And it says they level up on this one. For a little extra touch, I'm going to take this gold edged ribbon and make a loop from it. That looks kind of like the ribbons with meaning loops. And I'll make an angled cut on this edge too. At this point, I can take some tape. I have a nice tape dispenser that's like a sand-filled one, so I only ever need one hand to dispense the tape. That's your tip of the day. Okay, so this is gonna get crisscrossed and just secured at the center. That's all you have to do. And then if you have some foam adhesive circles, you can just place some on the square. I like the foam adhesive circles because they're not too bulky. It just gives you a little bit of pop without too much dimension. And then you can center this on top of that pretty ribbon. Isn't that beautiful? It's kind of like, yeah, you get the prize, you're leveling up. Okay, now for this step, I'm gonna grab my ruler. We have these rulers in different sizes. The 2x8 is one of my favorites for card making. And what I'm going to do here is just place some adhesive directly onto the left edge of this panel. So just the very left edge only. Leave everything else free of adhesive. Now, I like to use my grid ruler as a centering and leveling device. So on this edge, I have a 0 center on the ruler. So I'm going to place it on my card. And I think it's 1 1/4 inches from the edge. So I can tell on the ruler, that's 1 1/4. The center reading is going to put me at 2 3/4 at the top and the bottom. So 1 1/4 inches from the left edge of the card. And notice how my grid ruler allows me to get that measurement without having to measure in the other direction. And then if I place this centered here, centered top to bottom, that's at 1 1/2 inches at the top and the bottom. What I want to do is just stick this only to this front of this panel. The reason why those measurements are important is because when the card is closed, it needs to fit into this envelope. Another thing you could do is just lay the envelope down and figure it out that way. But with the ruler, I get a really precise placement, which I like. Now here's a fun little tip. Turn the card completely over. Notice where this paper ends. You don't want the adhesive to be here, right? You only want it on the other side of this paper. Open, place your adhesive on this edge, and don't exceed the edge of the card here. Close, and now you have the perfectly positioned double Z fold card with the open, the open back there. Isn't that nice? I really sort of, after assembling all my prototypes and then this set of cards, that to me was the best way. So your adhesive on the back here, add to the front, measure, flip, add to the back, and close. That's the step. So watch it again if you need to. But this card is pretty much done. It's ready to go. It's beautiful. Let's move on to set B. You can start by taking everything out of that pocket and go ahead and fold all of the cards in half. Make sure you get all those little tiny pieces out of the pocket because you have those little 1/2 inch sentiments. I do find that it's also helpful to sort all the panels, especially when there are this many, into order by size so they're easy to identify. And then also turn to the next page, which is page 4 in your instructions. As far as the card base assortment, we're going to go card 1 with the pattern, the taupe pattern, then the white, then red, and then the taupe metallic. So each one of these card bases gets a printed panel, which right away jazzes things up substantially. I love that. I love this print so much. Then each one will also receive a black panel, and that just really sets it off beautifully. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next largest panels, you can see why sorting ahead of time is an advantage. So next we have red taupe pattern, champagne, and white. Now we go even smaller with yet another panel. So this one's going to be champagne, red, white, and taupe pattern. Now we have sentiments. So it's a happy talent to know how to play, having fun. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. And then, sorry, I missed it. Sorry, this is your belated birthday card. We don't do those very often. We try to remember the birthdays. So the sorry, I missed it goes with that. This especially on your birthday goes with card 1. A happy birthday here, and then so happy for you there. Then each one gets a tag that we have filed earlier and a tiny sentiment. So it's your day, game on, way to go, and belated happy birthday. I'm going to stack these 3 others onto each other for later. So basically all the cards do assemble the same way. I'll show you some little minor differences when we're finished with our sample. Let's pop those into the A6 envelope. That's so nice, keeps all those pieces contained. And here we have a basic card assembly. Now, first thing you can do right out of the gates, if you'd like, is adhere the nesting panel onto the card base. If you would like to make sure you're nice and level, again, this is where I use my ruler. You've got a 1/4 inch reveal here. So I'm just gonna lay that mark along the edge of the card at the 1/4 inch and then center it top to bottom. Now, before you get ahead of yourself here, I want you to take, we're gonna take this red panel and do our little grid trick. So I'm gonna place this on my grid, on my cutting mat, come in with the washi tape. And I'm gonna add this, I'll do it on the second. That's gonna be 1 inch down from the top edge across. And wrap that around to the back. And now I'll nest this onto the black panel. We have these little sequins and they're really fun. Now, hindsight, as the art morphed into reality for this project, I probably would have gone something more earth tone rather than so flashy, with the way the art ended up being a little bit more vintagey. But I think this just adds the subtle, I'm using our bookbinding glue and attaching them to the sides of this panel here. Then if you want, you can take the sentiment, it's a happy talent to know how to play, and nest that onto the champagne. I keep calling it champagne, but the official name is taupe metallic. I think we should have named it champagne. Using some foam adhesive circles. We have black ones and white ones, whatever you want there. And I can layer this centered onto the red. Oh, lovely. Okay, then I will add adhesive to the black. I just love all this nesting. It's one of my favorite things. I'm going to use my ruler now to center this at the top. So now I have my grid ruler helping me center things up. And what I'm after here is an equal margin around the top edge and the left. And that leaves more space at the bottom for my strategy here. So the It's Your Day will fit perfectly onto this. As an option, you could take out one of your little scraps and you can take some bookbinding glue. When I'm gluing really small pieces of paper, I typically use the bookbinding glue. And then at this point, you could take scissors, or for these small mounts, I'm gonna grab my craft knife and a ruler and just kind of level things up here and create a really nice small reveal all the way around. You can do it with scissors. It won't be as accurate, but it'll still look just fine. And then I'll take more bookbinding glue and adhere this. See how it makes it pop a little bit? And it fits so nicely onto that tiny tag that we included. I love these tiny tags for the cards. It gives it a little something without too much, without too much dimension. And I'm going to clip off a piece of this checked ribbon, which is perfect for this collection. Now, in my card sample, I used a brad because I had one. If you don't have a brad, maybe try a stapler. I'm going to use a mini stapler, see if I can get that to work. Nice and easy. So however you choose to add it, maybe I'm going to try this mounted close to aligned with this edge. On the other ones it was centered, but I kind of like this look too. It's your own darn card, right? This is my card. I can make it how I want to. Lovely. It's just, this card makes me really happy. How about I use the rest of this piece? This is going to be 6 1/4. I'll quick trim that. And then I'll align it to the right edge here, maybe a 1/2 inch reveal, 1/4 inch. I just make a habit of using this ruler, and you'll never place anything crooked on your cards again. And then I can add, especially on your birthday, and then has a nice little anchor point in there. Just a little something extra special on the inside of the card. Beautiful. Let's take a look at my finished samples for the remaining pieces in the set. So let's see, this is the one we did together. And you can see how I used the antique bronze brad here, and I attached it with foam adhesive, a shorter tail in the ribbon, and centered. I mean, I kind of like this too, so whatever you like better. Then, let's see, this is the other vertical card, assembled the same way. On the horizontal cards, I did the same exact thing, but I mounted the washi tape horizontally onto the panel, since it's a horizontal card. And then over the top of the tape, just to give it a little flash, I added the checked ribbon, and that was wrapped around. You have to pay attention to your assembly order here. So make sure those ends are wrapped before you adhere this larger panel to the card base. Here, I just used a brad no ribbon and attached it to the right edge, overlapping a little bit here. And then some nested strips across the bottom. Again, adding a lot from that pocket D really helps give you a nice finished look. Same here on the horizontal assembly and the anchoring strip on the inside. That is set B. Let's move on to set C. You can begin by emptying everything, and there is a lot in pocket C, doing the same exact protocol. Fold all of the card bases in half, burnish, and then sort all of the panels that are in there. And oh my goodness, there's so many, but I love it. Sort them by size. For our card bases, we'll have, let's see, the pattern, and then red, and then a vertical champagne and a vertical white. Let me make sure I have this all in view here. Maybe we'll go horizontally with this. All right, so again, it's taupe red, metallic taupe, not champagne. I have champagne on the brain. And then white. Okay, then let's take our panels. We have this, just massive stack. So the largest panels, let's sort those. We're gonna do that metallic, and then the pattern, then white and red on those those larger panels. Now we have another slightly smaller panel. How about that nice bright white for contrast here? And then metallic taupe, red, and taupe pattern. We're gonna go one more rectangular panel. So now we're gonna add the red here. All the missing colors, basically, white, taupe pattern, and taupe metallic. Now the strip. So there's a strip on each card, bringing in, matching the base. So this is gonna be the taupe pattern, red. So bringing that color back into the foreground, which is kind of a nice metallic taupe, and then white. Each card receives 3 black squares. Remember, these have a pattern on one side and plain on the other. Designer's choice, how you want to adhere those. On the tall card, the aim high, put it in the middle with a target at the top and bottom. Same for this one, you're a winner, with a target at the top and a clock at the bottom. And this is because the order that it fell was because of I just stacked it all in the order it landed off the trimmer when I was doing this. So now I've got a red checker, a chess piece, and a sorry piece. Red, checker, sorry. All right, so that is distribution. Oh, we need to have our innies as well. We have Love You to Pieces, Thinking of You on both of those. And then aim high is It's Your Day, and you're a winner, gets the congratulations. And there you go. That's the final distribution for set C. We'll do our typical move here where we stack, because they all get assembled the same way. Move those into an envelope. And let's get this one together. I'll just give you the basic tips. So For starters, let's not add anything to the card base quite yet. And you can just kind of flip everything over. Well, not this one. So I'm going to take the white panel, this is the second largest panel, and add it to the metallic. And I'm eyeballing it. And then this one goes. And here we have this long strip. And that is centered. So if you wanted to, you could just kind of place this on the edge here. That's going to be 1 5/8 on each side, and then 7/8. Once you get used to using the ruler for centering, you can eye it up pretty quickly. But that is our panel. To finish this off, before I add anything else, I'm going to take this beautiful ribbon and cut it long enough to go past the edges on each side with my handy weighted tape dispenser. That's a fancy term for a desktop tape dispenser. Just center up that ribbon and tape the ends, and I cannot believe how perfectly the color of this ribbon matches that taupe paper. Beautiful. Each one of these black pieces will receive a cut apart piece of artwork, and that should center perfectly onto the black square. And then next you can flip them over again. If you like, add the foam adhesive. If you want to make your adhesive go further, take a second and cut these in half. So as you're tearing off the back, just keep in mind too, when you're placing the dots, I have the tabs facing the edge, so they're even easier to get at. Okay, now the first piece I like to attach is the left square, and then you're gonna make the reveal match at the top and the bottom and the left. Then take the piece you want over here on the right side and again, match reveal top, bottom, right. All that's left to be done here now is add the panel in the middle and split the difference. If you want, you could take, again, a little bit of our bookbinding glue, and the sequin does have a little mounting hole, so I'm sure to kind of tuck that in, and I just put it just above each square. A little bit of adhesive will hold it all in place really well to stay. Then the whole works can be attached to your folded card base. With such a small review like this, I don't need a ruler to help me. And then, once again, I'd like to go into pocket D, see what's in there. Like, you could, I don't know, is this gonna fit? Oh, look at that. I've got this scrap from the black paper. And if I measure the width of it, looks like it's 6 inches. So I'm gonna trim this at 6 1/4. And now I can mount this on my custom black mat to give it a little bit of pop, but I could use some color here too. What could I do to add some color to this card? How about I place it on my cutting mat and use the line on my grid to level a piece of washi tape there. And because I can't wrap the ends around to the back, I'll use a craft knife and allow the card edge to sort of guide the tip of my knife to give it a nice clean cut, and finish with my sentiment anchored by the ribbon. If you wanted, maybe you could add a row of 3 sequins here. That would be sweet. The world is your oyster. It's your game. You play it. Okay, now let's look at the finished ones here. This is the one we made together. Oh, I did there was a thin piece of the metallic that I put over the top of. That was kind of clever. Here we go with another anchoring piece. There's the matted black. This is the vertical with the ribbon going over the top of the washi tape, again, which is very nice. I featured 6 of those fun sequins on the inside. That gives it a nice little flash. Anchored it with the printed piece, cut a V into it. This is from pocket D. So is this. Black frame mat, nesting mat for the sentiment. And then finally, you're a winner. And you were. I'm so glad you joined me today for this class. I really hope you had fun, maybe learned a few tips along the way, and I look forward to seeing you here next month. If you like this fun and games kit, be sure to join me for that page kit workshop as well. We're going to make 8 beautiful pages together. So I'll see you there.